And yet, if you all watch Wendy, you know that she very, very rarely apologizes for anything. But there was one person who got her all the way together, okay? That was Roland Martin, when he went on her show and told her about the necessity and the importance of historically black colleges and universities. So that was probably my absolute favorite time that I've heard Roland speak. Roland Martin is going to speak today on the economic future of America, closing the wealth gap. He'll explore the reasons why this issue persists and provide us all with viable solutions to even the playing field. Roland Martin has always been devoted to news from an African-American perspective. He answers the call to make sure these stories receive adequate attention and exposure. He is the host of the Roland Martin Unfiltered Daily Digital Show, which you can find on RolandMartinUnfiltered.com for more details. You can also check your table. There's some information there. Roland is also still a senior analyst for the Tom Joyner Morning Show. You can read Roland's full bio on the conference app or on our conference webpage. Thank you guys so much for being here again this year, and please give a warm welcome to Mr. Roland Martin.
So how are we doing? Yes. All right, glad to be here. It's been going well thus far? Yes. All right, hopefully y'all will not be falling asleep since you just had lunch. The itis doesn't kick in. And I'm glad to be here. Thank you so very much for the invitation to talk about this crucial issue. Is one that I've actually spent my entire career focusing on. I was a neighborhood reporter at Boston American Statesman, and then became a county government reporter there as well. And after a year, went to Warsaw Telegram, where I was City Hall reporter. One of the areas that I specialized in was in housing, and gave city officials there a lot of help when it came to this issue. So there's one that I've covered, other places where I've worked, papers that I've run, whether it was the Dallas Weekly, the Houston Defender, the Chicago Defender, and also BlackAmericanWeb.com, where I was the founding editor of Tom Joyner's website. And then, of course, we've also used all the platforms when we had TV One, Washington, watching News One Now, and also again emphasized this critically important issue. And so it is important because it's amazing that the number of people who really don't understand, first, American history. And then two, don't realize the role that housing plays in that. And I always get a kick out of reading different pieces and looking at the analysis of folks as they try to explain what's going on. So in fact, it was quite interesting. While I was sitting there, I pulled up this piece that was done on thehill.com, and it was an op-ed that was done by a gentleman named Richard Sandy, professor at law school, UCLA School of Law. And he has a book that's called Moving Toward Integration, The Past and the Future of Fair Housing, being put out by Harvard University Press. And so I'm reading this article, and as I'm reading it, I'm laughing. Because what I did was, it came up to me because I put in Everett Dirksen proposed housing. If anybody understands who Everett Dirksen is, he was the Republican leader of the United States Senate in the 1960s. And he played a crucial role with President Lyndon Johnson when it came to passing the Voting Rights Act and the Civil Rights Act. And Republicans today love to talk about the number of Republicans who supported civil rights in the 1960s, but they often ignore the fact that when it came to housing, even Northern Republicans did not want black folks living in their neighborhoods. And the reality is, the measure passed the U.S. House easily, but for 2 years it was being filibustered in the United States Senate, and Dirksen was one of those folks who was in opposition to it. Now, some of you may be sitting here, yes, when you travel to D.C. and when you go to the Hill, you actually are going to one of the buildings named after Dirksen. And then one of the other buildings is named after Richard Russell, who was one of the most racist members of the United States Senate in American history. What does that say in the nation's capital? You have two monuments to folks who opposed civil rights advancement. And so what's interesting about Dirksen, again, Republicans who hold him up in a lofty way, he was a part of the Senate filibuster. Now, I'm reading this article, and the reason I find it to be interesting because this author is writing about the Fair Housing Act and how it was a bipartisan effort, and then he writes about how it was passed in 1968 and signed into law on April 11th. Yet what he completely omits is the fact that were it not for the assassination of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that bill would have never been signed. Because it was opposed for 3 years. LBJ introduced it in 1968, and they fought it, and it wasn't until King's assassination on April 4th, 1968, LBJ then sent a letter to the Senate the next day saying, there's no better way to honor Dr. King's life and legacy than to pass the bill that he gave his life for. You should pass this, and it was passed, and it was signed the following week. And so the point I'm making is, it took black blood to be spilled for America to pass the Fair Housing Act. And in fact, if you go back and look at 64 and 65, you look at all these various civil rights acts, it took folks being killed. It took 4 little girls, the anniversary was just on Saturday, killed in Birmingham. It took Medgar Evers being killed. It took riots to take place for America to go, okay, we kind of like to fix this thing. And I'm laying that out because I think part of the problem we have in this country is that too many of us have an understanding of his story and not history. And so we're asking questions today, well, my goodness, I don't understand, why is the housing rate still sitting there at 41, 42%, and how can we get this thing up, and what's going on? But we have to really understand that you can't ask that question as to where we are today if you really don't fully accept how we got here and how that still is playing a prominent role in American policy today. See, next year, the 400th anniversary of the first 20-odd Africans arriving in Virginia in 1619, August of 1619. So then you went through about 243, 245 years, legalized slavery in America. Then we went through this period of 10 years of Reconstruction, which arguably is the most important period for the advancement for black people in America. 13th Amendment, 14th Amendment, 15th Amendment, all those being passed in that particular time. Yet America, doing what America has always done, said, okay, fine, after 67 years, okay, we've done enough for the black folks. Can we just let it move on from this stuff? I mean, only in America could you go through 245 years of slavery, and we somehow think after 5 or 6 or 7 years, we've done enough to fix what took place over 245 years. But that's pretty much how America has always operated. So all of a sudden, there was an election in 1876, it was contested, and so a deal was struck. the Great Compromise of 1877. And what's interesting about this is a compromise that isn't written down anywhere. It was actually never officially voted on. It was done in the back rooms, and so the deal was struck. And the South said, look, we'll let Hayes be president and Republican if you withdraw the last federal troops from the remaining 3 southern state capitals. It's okay. We're going to leave these black people alone. We're not going to mess with them. Everything's going to be fine. Well, the dumbass Republicans believed it. And the moment they struck the deal, Grant, who was the president, first pulled troops out. 2 state capitals left. They pulled the troops out. That's when Jim Crow started. For the next 92 years, that essentially was slavery in America without shackles. You had a Civil Rights Act that was passed in 1870. You did not have another that was passed until 1957. And that was the issue of voting. And I'm laying all that out because, again, we walk around trying to understand these systems in this nation without realizing that if you use, King is killed in 68. So if you use 1970 as the marker, because pretty much the bill is passed in 68, we're really talking about another 15, 18 months before it really can show any impact. If you use 1970 as the marker, black people in America have only been technically fully free Americans for 48 years. Now I want you to think about it. See, we walk around and like, oh, no, but slavery was so long ago. Yes, official slavery was so long ago. We can't deny 92 years of Jim Crow. And then we somehow can't deny that even though if you use the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, the Fair Housing Act, those 3 critical laws passed in the 60s, you still have the after effects of that because it's not like all those folks who were believing in Jim Crow somehow left. In fact, they were still in power in the United States Congress. They were still in power in state capitals. They were still in power in mayoral offices. And so we act as if all those things just somehow magically disappeared. They went away when in fact the very people who were defending blatant discrimination and racism were still operating and involved in public policy. But not just that, those are the same people who still were in power in corporate America. I mean, it's amazing when you meet Eddie Brown, who was in Baltimore, who became the first, I believe it's Morgan Stanley, he was the first African American who was hired as a stockbroker in 1972. And the reason I lay this out is because if you say that we were not technically fully free Americans, I'm going to technically for a reason. Because when you still have to sue and still have to fight to live certain places, then you're not fully free. As Jackie Robinson said in his book, I Never Had It Made, he said, as long as one other African American is not fully free, then even I'm not fully free. And so, to understand the context, that means that if we were not technically fully free until 1970, I was born November 14, 1968, which means I was born into an America where I was not fully free. So why I don't have any kids, but I have 9 nieces and 4 nephews, which means that my nieces and nephews are the first generation of my family born fully free. So to understand that, it now puts us in the right frame of mind to understand what we are dealing with, because if anyone understands how you break down systems, we realize that those things are not broken down in just 1 generation or 2 generations. When you begin to understand how this nation used and abused housing to not only drive this wealth gap that's happening in America, then we understand where we are today. And so it amazes me when I'm sitting with people who are in public policy or sitting with folks on Wall Street who are trying to understand, well, how in the world did we get here? Why can't black folks just somehow catch up? Well, you can't have a discussion about catching up when you literally started a 100-yard race just with 10 yards left. And then saying, what's wrong? Where y'all at? And so by understanding that allows us to have a different type of conversation when we talk about how do we break down institutional barriers. Because this is a nation that literally used housing covenants to keep black folks from buying houses. That was put into law. The Supreme Court had to outlaw. Another example in terms of how something that happened in the past affects us today, you had numerous Virginia governors defending not allowing former felons to be able to vote in Virginia. It wasn't until Governor Terry McCullough who said this makes no sense, and he tried to give pardons to some 13,000 former felons. The Republicans said, no, you can't do that, you must do it individually, took him to court. And for the first time, a white governor said, here's the reason why it happened. In 1902, a state legislature was said on the floor of the Virginia legislature, we are passing this to keep the darkies from voting. So you had governors who were defending a law where the basis of the law was rooted in racism and discrimination. That literally was the quote that was used as to why they were passing the law. I'm saying that because we can't have discussions today about policy if we don't go back to the root of how policies were created to then understand people are defending certain things that were purposely designed to keep a group from being able to advance. And so when we begin to see that, that now causes us to say, okay, hold on. Now we have to have different conversations. And so we live in this world now where folks say, well, we don't support quotas, we don't support affirmative action, which of course is hilarious to me because the greatest affirmative action ever existed in this country as a casserole was frankly the GI Bill. That really was the greatest affirmative action. Just the other day I was actually reading a feed on social media where this white woman was talking about how SUNY in New York provided free education to New York City residents. They just didn't tell black people about it. So you have this whole collection of white Americans in New York City who had the ability to go to SUNY for free, get college degrees, be able to earn incomes, raise their families, and then you had this whole swath of people who didn't even know about this free education, and all of a sudden the beneficiaries of that, in terms of their descendants, have been able to benefit from the free education their families received, and then you wonder why you have a wealth gap in America today between blacks and whites. That ain't his story. That's history. And so when we have that type of dialogue, first, the point is not to condemn anyone white today. It's to be honest about how we got here. Because facts are facts. You can't say how in the world can you have $110,000 in wealth for white families and then $5,000 in wealth for black families in companies. And I was talking to a sister who her job was to ensure that you didn't have front companies who were taking advantage of affirmative action programs. And she was talking to the sons of a man who started the largest construction company in North Carolina. She said, I'm curious, how did you guys build this construction company? He said, well, they said, our father was serving in the military, and when World War II was over, he wanted to start his own construction company. So they had all of this surplus equipment on the Army base, and so he said, hey, war is over, can I just take some of this stuff, because I want to do this here? And the commander said, oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Today we call it a handout. We call that governmental assistance. Yet you can't find a black soldier who's allowed to take even a shovel off of an Army base. Now I want you to understand that. Just looking at it. So here you have today this man able to take free government equipment, start a construction company. Here his sons today are running the largest construction company in North Carolina. So what Daddy was able to do after World War II is now benefiting his sons and his sons' children. Yet you can't find a comparable story of an African American who was able to do that. That shows you again how these things develop in this country. So understanding that now causes us to say, how then must we approach this critical issue because anyone who understands economics, understands wealth, even you watch right now every time as Agent Orange tweets about the stock market. Half of America doesn't even own stocks. So in this country, folks are using the stock market as some indicator of how great the economy is, when in fact, the folks who are driving the stock market really are institutional investors and not everyday people. That's just a basic fact. And so the greatest barometer to understand wealth creation in America is really what you are doing, that is housing. Most Americans are getting their wealth as a result of housing. The reason you even have a wealth gap is because you've had decades of white families owning homes, selling homes, taking the investment from the homes they sold, investing that, saving that, applying that, and then passing it down. And all of a sudden, it's been through, again, what they passed down. That's really, this idea of wealth. I had Bill Spriggs, of course, as an AFL-CIO economist, Howard University economist as well. We always talk about this. See, folks go, no. See, you go to school, and then you work hard, and then you get you a really good job, you can save and invest your money. That's really how it's done. He's like, no. He said, wealth creation in America has come through housing. And so, coming out of World War II, GI Bill, they bought homes. All of a sudden, cities exploded, suburbs exploded. Folks were able to have a home, and of course, they sold it. They bought them another different home, sold it for a higher rate. Yet, African Americans moved into neighborhoods where whites used to live. They jacked the rents up 4 and 5 times. You heard I say rent and not say mortgage. Not allowed them to own those homes. If they did sell their home, if they sold it for virtually the same amount of money they actually paid for it. And so you had now generations of black folks who never had the ability to be able to pass a home or the home equity down to the children. That's why you have such a wide wealth gap in America. I'm saying all of that because you literally will determine the future course economically of people of color in America. Now let me repeat that. Some of y'all are going to be like, I just scared the hell out of you. You literally are on the front lines in a war that will determine the future economic viability and the future economically of people in color in America. We can have all types of conversation about stocks and bonds and mutual funds. We can have all the conversations about don't buy Nike gear because of what we did with Kaepernick, instead buy Nike stock. We can have all those conversations, but the reality is, unless we confront the enormous gap that exists in housing, when 2043 hits and America is going to be a majority nation people of color, we, unless we deal with it today, we will look like South Africa. And that is a nation today that is majority black, yet those same black folks there are economically poor because due to apartheid, which did not last more than 50 years, whites have economic and political power, whites have economic power, yet now because of what has happened with Nelson Mandela, with ANC, blacks have political power, that means nothing without economic power. And whether you are white or black or Latino or Asian or Native American, it does not matter. It should concern every single person, because the last thing I would think any of us want is to be in a situation where the gaps are so wide 25 years from now, and the job is going to be even harder than what it is today. And it's daunting as you think about it, But for me, it's really not because it's a challenge. It's a challenge because we know, because of demographic changes, how America will look in 2043. So the question is, how hard are we willing to fight today to ensure that this nation will look totally different for the 75th anniversary of the Fair Housing Act? See, I know a lot of people that we go through this world and folks like, man, look, this stuff is just hard, and look, it only increased a half a point. Well, if you actually think about it, if the home ownership rate for black folks was about the same in 1970 as it is now, hell, half a point is damn good. Because what happens is, a lot of us want to see massive progress without realizing that you're not going to see massive progress when you're going up against literally the last 399 years of American history. That every level of progress means that we are reaching that goal. So everything for me over the last couple of years has really been focused on 2043. Because to me, it would be a great shame to have numerical numbers that will translate into political power, but that won't translate into economic power. Saturday night, I led the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation Phoenix Awards. There are 48 black members of the Congressional Black Caucus. When they were founded in 1970, you could not have even gotten a dozen in the room. Next year, you may very well have 56 African Americans in the United States Congress. Folks would have never thought that was even possible. Ron Dellums, who died this year, one of the founders of the CBC, they would never thought that was possible. But that's where we're going. But the question then is, you can have 56, but will you have the kind of economic power that changes neighborhoods? How many of you have ever seen, literally, a neighborhood or a city rise up from just dust? Like, I'm talking about like nothing existed. Who's ever actually seen that? Like nothing was there, and then 5 years later, all of a sudden, oh my God, it's a handful of homes. Handful of homes. I'm from born and raised in Houston, and I've seen literal neighborhoods and cities that didn't exist, and all of a sudden, 5, 8 years later, you're like, what the hell happened? And what happens is, when you go to these cities, they always start off with you driving, and then you look, and then you all of a sudden you see a big old piece of land, and next thing you know, you have all these trees cleared out. And the next thing you see these little orange flags in the ground. And you're like, what is it? So they just marking off, okay, where lines are going to be, and also where pipes are going to be dropped. And the next thing you know, you'll see some streets that are paved with no names, just asphalt and curbs. Then all of a sudden you'll see 1 or 2 model homes on there. The next thing you see is, as things begin to grow and develop, you see 1 or 2 and 3, 4 and 5, and 6, 7, 8, 10. And then all of a sudden the neighborhood, they begins to pop up. So I would ask this question, so I'm curious to see what y'all know, since y'all know my house. What are the first 2 businesses that go into or near a neighborhood when one is first starting to be built? Say it again? Oh, that's everybody one time. What you say? Gas station, grocery store? No. Hold up, over here? Yes. She's at Home Depot? No. Over here? Utilities? No. Businesses? No. Liquor store? Hell no. Say it again? Church? No. What you say? Banks? No. creams. Always. You will see a little strip center come up. It's going to be a donut shop and dry cleaners. It's people who buy homes, got to go to work, get their clothes clean. And they go buy some coffee, some donuts on their way. It ain't going to be Starbucks. It's going to be that cheap coffee, a donut shop you never heard of. Always happens. Always happens. The reason being is because that's how it starts. You don't get a grocery store later because grocery store only has 2% profit margin. You need a massive number of people to support a grocery store in the neighborhood. Same with a Home Depot. All those things, none of those things come until literally 10, 12, 15 years down the road because you have to actually have people. But the thing that's interesting is that, especially these suburban neighborhoods, what is it that they don't want? No, they don't want apartment complexes. They don't want renters. They don't want renters because when you're building a neighborhood or when a city is growing, you want homes. Because the other company that you mentioned, Starbucks, Home Depot, and all of those different companies, their market research is not driven by renters. They're driven by homes. I was sitting with the city manager in Cedar Hill, Texas, neighborhood, it's a city, suburban city outside Dallas. I bought a home there in 1999. And probably when I got my home there, there may have been 10 other homes there. So, the brother was city manager, and so the city was so small, I just dropped by and dropped in. And I was asking him a few questions and stuff along those lines, and I asked him, I asked him about public transportation. Again, it's one of the stories, issues that I've covered, and look, I have a car, so it's not like I'm talking about driving a bus. He said, no, we can't have public transportation. No, he told me. We said, no. That's one of the reasons why we look at, look, when the Atlanta Braves moved out of City Atlanta to Cobb County, they were very clear. No, that train ain't coming out. Because suburban neighborhoods don't want folks living in inner cities taking public transportation into suburban areas where they can work and go back. Y'all, that's American policy. What I'm saying is not just something they do. No, that is American policy by design. To say, if you want to live out here, you better buy a home. Only you can buy a home if you can afford to buy a home. Now, after a particular area has been able to reach a significant level when it comes to home ownership, then developers will then begin to look at apartment complexes. But you've never seen a city rise up based upon apartment complexes first, home second. Never happens. Correct. That tells you how we view home ownership. Somebody mentioned churches. Any church that touts their membership is a church that's not real. Real churches count families. Because families stay. Families buy homes. So you meet a church that says, we got 10,000 members. No. Ask them how many families you have. Because if you have a church with 10,000 members, and then a significant number of your folks single, that means they're transient. They're going to come and go. Pastors pay attention to families. Families stay. Families have babies in the church. Families have their babies that grow up and get married in the church. That's how you have multi-generational families. I'm saying all of this so we can understand literally how we view home ownership and how it drives so much of how our cities and neighborhoods are created, and even the whole public policy around home ownership or home ownership drives our public policy. It literally drives development. It drives what resources are going to go into an area. It drives police departments have a totally different perspective of areas where people own homes than they do with even cluster apartment complexes. I'm telling you what I have encountered in my entire career as a journalist, sitting down with politicians, sitting down with public safety officials. Everything in America is totally different based upon home ownership. The tax policy in America is designed not for single folks who live in apartments, but for married people who live in houses. Our census is driven that way. All these different things. And so, once we begin to understand that, now all of a sudden we say, how do we then become even more focused to get these numbers up and to become disciples of why this is so important? March 19, 2014, I am in Raleigh, North Carolina, laying for a Radio 1 conference. And I open the front page of the Wall Street Journal. And they have an article that said that $23.08 billion in small business loans were handed out in 2013. Yet African Americans received 1.7% or 385 million of the 23.09 billion. So I'm reading this article, and front page of the Wall Street Journal. And what was the prime reason why that number dropped? It was 6.8% under President Bush in 2008, and then by 2014, it dropped to 1.7%. What was the prime reason? It was because of the home ownership crisis. Because for black business owners, they didn't have capital in terms of stocks and bonds and investment. It was their home. No home, no loan, no business. $23.09 billion in small business loans given in 2013, yet just 385 million went to African Americans. So I see the article and I immediately sent an email to the White House saying, I want somebody from the SBA on my time drawing a 7 on Monday. They said, well, we can't get somebody with one. I said, fine, get me somebody with Tuesday. And so I'm communicating with them. And so as a young white female at the Small Business Administration, not out one, she didn't quite realize who I was and what Tom Jordan on the show was. And so she pretty much blew us off. And I said, okay, that's how y'all want to roll, huh? So I'm in a meeting with White House officials, and I said, let me be perfectly clear. And I'm going to quote some of y'all, I'm going to give y'all an advance. I said, let me be perfectly clear. I said, until you get somebody from the SBA on the show to explain what are y'all going to do to ensure black folks and Latinos get more of these contracts. I said, I will kick your ass every day at every available point on every medium that I have. I said, I will be discussing sports, and I'm going to bring up I will be discussing entertainment. Oh, no, let me be real clear. We were sitting in the executive office building. I let them know how serious I was because as somebody who covered housing and understood the housing crisis and the foreclosure, I understood that if we were losing homes and losing equity and now not being able to open businesses, then it didn't mean anything when people tout how many numbers that we have. How's that manifested itself? Easy. 7 years ago, there were 1.9 million black-owned businesses in America. 1.8 million had just one employee. They were doing an average revenue of $110,000. Today, there are 2.6 million black-owned businesses in America. 2.5 million only have one employee. They're now doing an average revenue of $54,000. Here you have a 700,000 increase of black-owned businesses, but the revenue has been cut in half. And there also has a change in the fact that only 100,000 black-owned businesses in America have more than one employee. Housing is directly tied to that. And so now understanding all of that, now what that should say is, when you leave here, you must see yourselves operating as soldiers in a war that has to be won. Otherwise, if you don't think that way, it is a war that is going to be lost, and it is going to have a negative impact not on the people living today, but on the people's children's children's children. 53% of all black wealth was wiped out because of the housing crisis. Not 20, 30%. 53% of all black wealth. It would take, when I'm talking, I had a list one on my shelf in 2010. It would take 2 generations to replace the money lost 8 years ago. 2 whole generations. And so when we talk about where we are heading, we literally must have a different state of mind and focus when it comes to why housing matters and how we must change people's mind to get them to understand that if you are even going down the path of your children going to school, the ability to be able to take that equity and how you maximize that, and how you do it for your business, and how also being able to home that loan completely transforms how you even live as a family. Because part of the reason why there is this difference between black folks and white folks is that, look, if you black and you start making $40,000 a year in an average black family, you are largely the highest wage earner in the family. I was talking to Van Jones, and Van Jones said, well, my wife is white, and the conversations that her dad has with her when he's calling are totally different than when his parents are calling him. Her dad is talking about stocks and bonds and annuities. He said, when my parents call it, is can you help so-and-so out to be able to pay their school? He said, it's a different conversation. No, look, when I was talking to a girl, Melanie area, we were talking about Melanie Hobson. Melanie Hobson is married to George Lucas. Star Wars. He got $4 billion. $4 billion. George Lucas told her, because Melanie and I were talking about how having my family does. George Lucas said, it would never dawn on one of my family members to call and ask me for money. I was like, shh. With $4 billion. You got a whole bunch of new relatives you ain't got. And George was totally thrown by that. Nothing like, what the hell are you talking about? It is literally an entire different perspective. And so the financial decisions that we are making today have an impact because one of the reasons you also have a level of wealth gap in this country and also lower debt is that when you have white families who are able to invest, able to save, able to pass things down through inheritance, and so when that kid goes to college, there's a college fund for them, so therefore they're not taking out the same level of loans. African Americans are graduating at a higher rate. Black women are graduating at higher rates than white people in America, but are coming out with 2 to 3 times more debt. So even though they're sitting home and the problem is the average African American with a college degree is making the same amount of money as a white high school graduate. And so all of a sudden now, that's not impacting because if you now have a high debt ratio when it comes to coming out of college, then when your child grows up, you don't have the ability to hand your child a down payment on their wedding day for their first home. And so largely white families are. And so all of a sudden, the cycle is repeating itself because of what happens economically. But when we're able to be able to own a home, it changes the whole conversation. The reason I know that for myself is because when I paid off my home, I gone through a bankruptcy. Luckily, I was able to get me a job, paid everything back, and then all of a sudden, the amount of money I'm making, my financial advisor, she's going, okay, you want to invest? I said, no, I'm paying the house off. She's like, what? I said, no, I'm paying the house off. I said, one, I talked too much shit on TV. It would be home. I did. I told everybody, I would have got a house to go to. I got to focus on utility and taxes. I'm good. And so I paid the house off. And so then when I leave and my sister and her 2 children. She left an abusive marriage and then moved in with me. Then I moved to Chicago. She was able to live in that particular home, not having to pay a mortgage because she has to pay bills. My parents retired. I still was like trying to get a smaller apartment. I was like, smaller than this? I said, y'all can live in my house in Dallas. They packed. My dad 2 months later, they were packed up. So here's the home that I bought in 1999, buying for $122,000. Now, it's now trading at $180,000. 2 generations of my family are living in the same house, not having to pay. So therefore, what they're making makes it allow them to be able to live there because they're living rent-free. And so now my house operates again as a place where I can have family members who can stay there, get themselves together as they then go on and move on. For my parents, who are now 71, a place where they can actually retire. Home ownership allows us to be able to do that as opposed to operating in terms of one street. So when you leave here, your perspective or your focus should be totally different. You should literally leave here not saying, I work to help folks get a home. You really should be thinking of yourself as the same way as a modern day evangelist. Like Paul traveled across the land spreading the word, you should be thinking the exact same way. When you are having these discussions, in those days when you are frustrated and you think you're not impacting, the reality is you should be saying to yourself, that the work that I am doing literally will change not individuals, not families. The work that you're doing is literally changing the future makeup of a nation. The work that you're doing is impacting not somebody you're dealing with today across that desk. You're not working with somebody across that desk to get their credit together or to get their money together. No, you literally are looking at somebody and you're saying, I'm helping 2 and 3 generations of people who I will never meet, whose lives will be transformed by virtue of which means that beyond the work that you do with individuals, how you also approach policymakers has to be different. And see, I believe one of the fundamental problems that we have is that those who are housing advocates are not as vocal as they need to be in terms of putting the level of pressure on public policymakers to make it easier for folks to be able to get into homes. Because what happens is there are other people who are on Capitol Hill, who are in state legislatures, or who are talking to city government and county government, and they are louder, they are more forceful. But the reality is you must be standing on ladders, shouting at the rooftops. There is no better way to change the future of America than to confront what is happening with housing in this country. And you have to force others to understand that and see that so they realize it's not just an insignificant thing. Which means you also have to challenge those who are in media who have no clue. 2012, we're sitting here on CNN and we're at the Republican National Convention. Mitt Romney gave a speech and I said, I don't know what the hell we just heard because I didn't hear. Here we are in 2012, still dealing with the home foreclosure crisis in the country. And trust me, I was killing President Obama because his HAMP program sucked, was supposed to help more than 1 million people. It barely helped 30,000 people. And then every time Sean Donovan would come on our show with a new housing program, I would say, you know, that may be the last that didn't work. I did. If you want to be honest, and I know black folks look at President Obama and say they look at Jesus and okay. But if there was one of the greatest failures of his 8 years of presidency, it was in housing. There were those who were pressing him for a moratorium on home foreclosures. We bailed out banks who used the money to bolster their bottom line, did not sell those toxic assets, and what they did was they held onto those homes, knowing full well the economy was going to be changing, and then what happened was they partnered with hedge funds and were buying up lots of 25,000 homes. So even when you had Americans who could afford to buy a home for the first time, they could not afford to buy any of those homes because they were competing against billion-dollar hedge funds. See, I'm not willing to criticize just Republicans. I would challenge Democrats. I would challenge Bush. I would challenge Obama because I understand what it means to actually own a home and how the development of family is tied directly to that. And I'm sorry, that was one of the greatest failures, what HUD did in the 8 years of his presidency. And so, but where we have to be now is again pushing in product and challenging these officials to examine their policies and to stop playing these games that we still are seeing today where redlining still exists even if they're not using the word. We must be willing to mobilize religious groups and to go after banks that rape and pillage our communities with subprime loans and who somehow believe by buying a table at the NAACP banquet, the National Urban League banquet, or the NAM banquet somehow can replace the billions of dollars that was lost due to the home foreclosure. I'm not interested in a $10,000 table when folks were handing out $500,000 or $600,000 or $700,000 mortgages. So really what has to happen is there has to be a much more vigorous movement to challenge this nation when it comes to this issue. Because if this issue impacts education, impacts wealth, impacts city, county, state, nation, impacts married, single, then why is it that we are not challenging folks? I mentioned being in 2012 at the Republican National Convention in Tampa. And I said that Mitt Romney didn't say jack about how he was going to deal with housing. I said he doesn't even have a housing plan. John King, also on CNN, goes, Roland, that's not true. Mitt Romney has a housing plan. I said, wait. And the reason, first of all, right then he pissed me off. As if I didn't somehow have my stuff together. I said, John, just 2 weeks ago I wrote an entire piece on housing plans of both candidates. I went through his entire website, top to bottom, every single page, never found a housing plan. And he insisted he has a housing plan. And I'm sitting there going, well, damn it, where is it? And so we moved on to, Anderson Cooper said, well, we'll sell this off air. I'm sitting there going, you damn right we're going to sell this. So we went to a commercial break. In between the commercial break, I grabbed my phone, pull up Mitt Romney's website to look for that housing plan, and then when we came back on the air, R.A. Fleischer and I was talking about something else. I said, oh, by the way, Anderson, I checked in the break, there's no damn housing plan. Because see, what I need you to understand is that the folks you will see on television, most of them are making high 6 figures and 7 figures. Hell, they don't care about public housing. They don't care about housing assistance programs. Which is why when you saw 26 debates, you didn't see any of them asking about housing. You didn't see them asking about the plan. Same reason you didn't see them asking about hiring. Same reason you don't see them asking about public education, because most of their children go to private school. I'm saying all of this because the only way we're going to change this narrative and change these numbers is if we have advocates who are making it clear that you are not going to let folks get away with not addressing this issue. I have sat at the table with Agent Orange twice. And I have sat there with the other 17 television anchors in the room. And I can guarantee you this doesn't come up. And the last conversation we had, of course, when I was there, now, the whole conversation was off the record, but I will say, I can tell you this, it was one damn person in that room who asked him when the hell he would talk about the 50th anniversary of Fair Housing Act. And I got no answer. Well, the answer I got was, well, I'm sure what you're talking about. Just set a meeting up with me, you, and Secretary of Housing, Ben Carson. I'm still waiting. And let me be clear. I don't care if Ben Carson's black. I'm going to jam his ass about housing and living. The only way we are going to confront this issue is we follow the admonition of Frederick Douglass, who said, power concedes nothing without a demand, followed by agitate, agitate, agitate. Beyond the role that you play every single day, you should be also utilizing your power as a collective and being able to march on folks, challenge folks, look them in the eye and say, what are you going to do about this? Because this issue affects folks who are black, who are white, who are Latino, who are Asian, who are Native American, affects them in the North, the Midwest, the South, the Southeast, and the West. Because this is an issue that goes across every neighborhood, every state, all across this country, and you must be willing to dare to look somebody in the eye and say, we are unwilling to allow you to ignore this issue, unwilling to allow you to act as if it does not matter, and you must understand that it's going to be a fight because you're going up against banking interests who don't want to invest in neighborhoods, who don't want to invest in people, who only want to do small amounts, and when you are in a fight, that means you've got to be ready to fight, prepared to fight, prepared to battle, unwilling to back down. And as my frat brother Bertha Woods and Tandy said, we will fight until hell freezes over, and then we will fight on the ice.
Any questions that you guys have? Okay, here is one of our middle HBCU brothers right here.
I'm Nicholas Whiteside. I'm a sophomore at Fisk University. I'm originally from Memphis, Tennessee. And my question would be, with the knowledge that you have on housing, I'm a student that when I graduate, within 2 or 3 years after I graduate, I want to be able to own a home so I can start that succession of home ownership and start that generational wealth for my family. So what advice would you give me now so I can get on the right track?
Well, the first thing, let me broaden that. So I think what should be happening is, it's just like, I've done 16 commencements, 14 at HBCUs. One of the things that I've said to presidents is that you have to, so you must teach tithing to your university among the student wants on campus. Southern University dramatically increased their alumni giving and student giving as a result of that. I'm a graduate of Texas A&M. The moment you walk on Texas A&M campus, first day, you are being indoctrinated and you are going to give. And so what should be happening is, we should be, I would say where you are now, leading the effort to have housing discussions right now on HBCU campuses, and not just with seniors and juniors, but also with sophomores and freshmen. Explaining to people that the financial decisions they are making literally as college students are going to have a direct impact on their home ownership ability, whether it comes to their credit score. And also, even on that particular point, even with credit, it was interesting. We had my show Washington Watch. My executive producer, I said, we're going to do a whole show, a whole hour on credit. He's like, dude, that's not enough. I said, yes, it is. And he was fighting me, but I ran the show. So I was like, shut the hell up. We're doing a whole hour on credit. Which is why I always wanted to have editorial control over every show that I have, where I can control the content. What ended up happening, we had it, and then it was like, damn, we could have done 2 more hours. I should tell you that. Because see, what I realized again, most people again have no clue. Most people have no understanding of any of this. They don't understand how it all correlates. And so, as opposed to saying, what can I do? I say, go back to your campus and say, we're going to put on this workshop, series of workshops. Now, here's the other thing. This actually goes for everybody. I don't concern myself with who doesn't show up. I only focus on who's in the room. I think one of the things where we fail is we want to do so much stuff and we go, and we brought this stuff on and 12 people showed up. Okay. Great. Which means that you tell the 12 in the room, next month we're going to do this again, and each one of you must bring 2 people. Now you go from 12 to 36 in a month. And so I believe in small successes will lead to big successes. And that's what I would do. And I would then even challenge, look, you've now got with the various networks, you've now got with the various apps, with the various websites, with various groups, say we can do this on multiple campuses. And what we're talking about is this is not a conference. This is not like, oh my God, we got to bring all the people in, a lot of people in. No, it's taking advantage of available talent that's already in the city, already there, and then begin to teach folks, because the reality is, this is what information comes in. Because if you look at the numbers, if only 42% of black people got a house, that means 58% of black people don't. Which means somebody's not having a conversation. So I don't assume discussions are being had. My deal is, we're going to lead them if somebody already knows, that's great. And then we can begin to teach them, and I'll give you one last one. Are you fraternity? So I'm an Alpha Phi Alpha, like me. Our chapter, we started our own investment club. We had about 22 our brothers who were in the investment club with a minimum contribution of $1,000 minimum. And so probably after 18 months, we probably had, based upon the investments we made, $250,000. Well, the home that I bought, I was able to take the money from the investment club to make it down payment. So that's one of those things that, again, where people go, well, and that was just 20 of us. We had more brothers than that who had graduated in our chapter. 22 who said, hey, I want to do this. So again, it's walking folks through those kind of ideas where somebody goes, yeah, but okay, but I don't have, if I want to get a $200,000 house and I got to put 10% down, 20% down, I don't have the money. Okay, but if you do this, you take your 1,000 and it goes to 20 other people, since you begin to invest it, how it begins to accrue. There's a great phrase from the movie Hoopla. Lawrence Fishburne said, when you don't know, you don't know. I start from the premise, folks don't know. Then somebody has to let them know. And so you start small and begin to build there. That's how you start. Next question.
Absolutely. Next question, Kim.
Gary's got it. Gary's.
Go ahead. Go ahead.
Thank you, Roland, for your talk. You mentioned that we are in a war of economic viability. So my question to you is, who or what is the enemy, and what tactics do they use so we be prepared for it?
Public policy makers are the enemy. Banks are the enemy. Very serious. Very serious. And the reason I'm saying that, for example, the bank for my parents had an account for 25 years. Went through several homes. My parents never changed banks. That's where their money went every single month. And when it came time for a loan, sorry, I can't give you one. My parents were loyal to the bank for 25 years. Banks were like, nah, we're good. Oh, okay. That's how y'all want to roll. Take my money out. See, the issue I have with that is that when we saw it with the home foreclosure crisis, I I use a phrase, me, which means that you have to be focused on your greatest shareholder, which is you. We live in a nation that folk care about their bottom line, not your bottom line. And I'm sorry, banks care about their bottom line. And so, if that's the case, in the end, if banks are not properly educated, if banks are not using their vast resources to teach, to walk people through, and just saying no. As a reporter, I'll never forget it. My buddy yesterday did a story on these folks who were trying to get their home refinanced. This was like 2009, 2010. And they recorded them on the phone, and the letters, and the emails down. And it was 15 months of hell they went through. I saw with the HAMP program where, and I told Sean Donovan, and I told him to his face, how in the hell do you have a program where you have surprise inspections but you call ahead? That's not helping people. The reason, and probably when I say enemy, there are people who work at banking institutions who want to do the right thing that others who don't. And I believe in rewarding those who do. I'm not saying everybody gets along. This ain't when Oprah giving a show, you get a car, you get a car, you get a car. But I do believe that there's somebody who can't qualify. And there should be a system to say, okay, we're going to send you here to help you and put you in a position where you to qualify. That to me is loyalty. When I started my business, again, this is what, again, banks don't think. We're sitting here and I said, I need a business credit card. They're going, well, we're only going to do $1,000 limit. And I go, it's $200,000 sitting in that bank account right now, which you're using as part, which you're leveraging my money when it comes to my deposits in terms of what you're doing. They were like, well, that's it. I said, all right, cool. Shut the account down. I moved it over here where I got a credit card secured with a CD for $20,000. Okay, but let me work out. Not a damn thing. It's too late. So what I'm saying is, the enemy are the very people who are throwing up barriers that are preventing people from advancing, because I'm looking at this not from the vantage point of just that person who may be on the borderline when it comes to their credit. I'm thinking about that person's son or daughter and their unborn son or daughter, and how literal families can be transformed by virtue of a home. I believe decisions like housing are so crucial to a person's self-worth, a person's value, and how it can, really, owning a home can change the bloodline. Owning a home can literally change the bloodline of a family. Generational curses can end based upon owning a home. So I take it more personal because I have witnessed when people were able to move out of certain neighborhoods, they were able to move into a place where they got a home, or they were able to send their kids to a different school based upon where the home was, or able to find a different job. And so I believe when barriers are being put up that are unnecessary, and people are not offering options to help somebody go from here to here, that's what I define as an enemy. And I dare say the politician, or the bank, or the mortgage company, or the credit union, or take your pick, those who are trying to help people better themselves and their family, that's who I consider allies and not enemies. What we got?
Stand up.
What we
I don't
got?
know where the mic is.
Okay, go.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Roland from this university, and my question to you is, what role does racial redlining have on gentrification, and what can be done about it?
Oh, it's huge. Look, gentrification is a huge issue, but again, it's understanding. This is where history comes in. Okay. So you had 50s, 60s come along. You had covenants outlawed by the Supreme Court. Then all of a sudden, fair housing laws come in. Black folks move in, white folks move out, suburbs increase, black folks move to the suburbs, white folks move out further. Look, let's just be honest. Housing in America has been designed as a way to get away from other people. Tied to economics. Because if I'm able to build a neighborhood where the median average home is $300,000, if you can't afford a $300,000 house, I mean, that's how it is. Our entire education system is built around where you live. So people talk about, okay, why do we have the same level of segregation in schools in 2018 that we had civil rights movement? Because our neighborhoods are still, look, you drive around, what do we say? Let's just be honest, let's not play PC. White neighborhood, black neighborhood, Latino neighborhood, Asian neighborhood. That's what we say. And why do we say that? Because who we see. If I'm driving and I see a number of white folks jogging, and white folks at Chick-fil-A, and white folks at the grocery store, white neighborhood. That has been how America has operated. The problem that we have is we act as if apartheid was only in South Africa. No, apartheid existed longer in the United States than South Africa. And so that's how it's based. Housing determines our voting. Electronic system, ballot system. Greater resources here, fewer resources here. All driven by housing. Why? Most of our economic system is driven by property taxes. Property taxes based upon value of a home. Fewer home ownership, more apartments, lower property values, lower amount of tax revenue. Homes over here, higher home value, higher property taxes, and then that's what people say, I want my money for my neighborhood going into my school and not yours. That's the American system. Whether we want to be honest or not, that's how we are set up. And that's driven by race. It has been and it still is. And if you integrate, what did Chris Rock say? Chris Rock said it was two black people who live in my neighborhood, me and Mary J. Blige. In his routine, he said, hold up, there are doctors and dentists and lawyers and whatever. And he's like, oh, hold up. Hell, we entertainers. How they make the same money we make? Because we have historically been frozen out of those things. Race. And so, I'm honest about how we got to be where we are. I'm just not walking around fools. I know other people who tweet me, why you always talk about race? Because shit is talking to me. I'm sorry. How many of you right now work in corporate institutions, or you met with corporate institutions, and you went into the meeting, there are literally virtually no black or Latino people in the meeting? How did that happen? It's across the board. Unions, corporate America. You go on right now. Last week, the Joint Center Political and Economic Studies released their report, and there are virtually no African Americans who are in the top political positions on the Democratic side. If it wasn't for the CDC, you would virtually have no black chiefs of staff, political directors, legislative directors, or communications directors in the offices. These are Democrats who desperately need black people. That's a system. And what does that system do? The people who are chiefs of staff, political directors, communications directors, legislative directors, they're the ones who get hired by lobbying firms, who get hired in corporate America. And so people leave those positions, and then they go into these particular areas over here, and what do? They hire people who they already know. And so then that's why you have, when Power Pack did their particular survey of $500 million being spent on political campaigns, black folks got 1.7% of all of that. It's like, wait a minute, how the hell can you get 96% of black people's vote, and you get 1.7% of the money when it comes to political campaigns? It's because you largely have white pollsters, white strategists, white communications firms, and they somehow believe that black folks don't exist. That is a system where we have been frozen out of for decades. And so it's understanding that and being honest about it and then saying, okay, now how are we going to stop perpetuating a system and begin to say the excuses that you're using are wrong? That's why we asked the question about enemy. I need banking institutions who say we are real partners. We are here to help people. If I want to engender loyalty from a customer base, then this is what I do. This is basic as hell. Look, people of color are two things: distrustful and loyal. No. We have to see, we got to be real honest about the conversation. If you black, it's going to take a while. Can I trust this black person? No. I need us to understand what happened. I need us to understand that in this country, when we talked about the issue of voting, last night I was just reading Robert Penrose's book on LBJ Masters of the Senate. But what happened in Alabama was when you had 600,000 people in the state and 20,000 black people were registered, but they never even wanted to vote because if they were black and then went and voted, what happened was every year when they would go into the store to get their crop loan for their particular land, the bank would then say, your black ass voted. You're not getting a crop loan this year. Which then meant they lost their farm, and they had to move out of that farm and go up north to work, to live in apartments, to live in segregated neighborhoods, to work for plants when they were leaving farms that they actually owned. That was American policy. So how did black land ownership really decrease? Because the economic powers were used against black people who were trying to vote, and they literally gave up or run out of Alabama and Mississippi and Georgia and Tennessee and Florida, where they had land for 50 and 60 and 70 years because they said, you dared to even want to vote, so we're going to sit here and freeze you out economically, and we're going to take your land. That's America. I'm just somebody who actually is willing to read about it all. And so, I can compare that to what happened in the housing foreclosure crisis. And 53% of wealth gone. All of those advancements, the highest black home ownership rate, early 2000s, wiped away. Because I have to understand history. In history, the reason there's a yo-yo effect for African Americans economically, because at every point where African Americans are able to hit a certain level of advancement, something happens to push back down. That's history. Slavery, Reconstruction, Jim Crow. Go through the 50s and 60s, black mayors, Stokes in Cleveland, Hampton, Indiana, Mayor Jackson. You realize that 0.001% of black people got city contracts in Atlanta in 1973? That's 10 cents out of every $100 spent. What happened in Atlanta? Maynard Jackson called the banks in. He said, he said, I need you to give loans to these black companies that have contracts with the airport. They have contracts from the city. We're going to pay them. You know it. Give them a credit line. Bank said, we ain't doing it. Maynard Jackson said, fine. City treasurer, come here. Pull our money out their banks. Bank, hold on, brother. Wait a minute. Maynard Jackson used the leverage of his political power to tell the banks, you don't want to loan money, extend credit lines to black-owned businesses, then I'll take our money out. So why is Russell Construction today the largest black construction company? Because of what Maynard Jackson did. Why do you have black architectural firms and engineering firms and advertising firms and PR firms in the city of Atlanta that have been able to do millions of dollars in business? It is because they use the power of politics to change the economics of Atlanta and force the system to change. That's what we're talking about. So when we talk about enemies, that has to happen. I sat with Roland in Illinois. I said, dude, the same thing Maynard Jackson did. So you got black-owned businesses in this state who are willing to can do the work, but they can't float their businesses for 6 months because they don't have a level of capital. You tell the banks who got their money from the state of Illinois, look, it's a very simple program, and it's not affirmative action. Here are businesses that are doing business with the state. We have state contracts. You are doing business with the state. We're putting our money in, extending lines of credit. And look at me, he said, I could do that? I'm like, damn it, yes. This is what I'm talking about, how we use power to break down systems and to force people to change. It happened in Atlanta. It happened here in D.C. with Mary Bear. It happened with Coleman Young. But what happened? You had all this black successful black mayors in the 1970s, Ronald Reagan's election in 1980. Obama, you had success of African Americans in 2000, Bill Clinton as president, and all of a sudden the economic policies of Bush come in. And on my show on WVON Radio in Chicago, Alfonso Jackson admitted, he was health secretary, he admitted that the push to deregulate and get rid of federal housing standards and go to 50 state standards is what caused the home foreclosure crisis, because you didn't have a single standard. And he said that was a mistake. And that's what ended up happening, and it led to this crisis. And the problem is, over the last several years, now, white average wealth dropped. Latino and black, white average wealth dropped just 20%. Latino average wealth dropped about 35%. Black wealth dropped 64%. That's why I'm talking about how we have to understand how public policy and finance work hand in hand to impact what's happening in our state.
Let's give